Hello, my loves. Doctor Strange is what we're talking about today. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We're going to do relationships that are at play. In this film, there's going to be heavy spoilers through, starting in 3, 2, 1. Spoilers ahead. So we're going to be talking particularly about Wanda's relationship with her children. We're also going to be talking about Doctor Strange and his attachment styles. There's a very, very obvious attachment style that's at play with him. Have you spotted it? Let me know if you have, whether it's anxious or avoidant or secure. He said something very telling towards the end of the film, so we're going to look at that too. I have about 10 different points actually. This is probably going to be a pretty epic live stream. It's probably going to be very long. Just saw the film yesterday, melted my brain, haven't quite fully processed what's happened, but what I would love for you to do for me is to share in the comments below what's one word to describe how you felt after the film. I would love to hear, so drop it down below. Oh, quick intro, then we'll get into it. If you haven't been here before, welcome to Love and Fandom, where we believe the relationships we see on the screen help us to understand ourselves at a deeper level and have a better relationship with ourselves and with everyone else in our life. I'm Cheryl Muir, relationship expert, professional fangirl, full-time nerd, and someone who was very excited to watch Multiverse of Madness. As I said, I watched it yesterday and loved it at the time, and afterwards I walked away feeling like the confused woman meme with all the math symbols around her. I was like, so we did what now? And the Darkhold and the Book of Light and then all the realities, and it was a lot of things. It was a lot of things to take in, but we're just going to continue on and we're going to look at this. So here's the first thing I want to start with is Wanda. We've talked about Wanda before. We've talked about her origin story, but not as far back as Ultron. We talked about her origin in what happened in Westview. You can view that above. And when you can see where someone's come from, which Marvel is so good at, when you see where someone's come from, why they're doing the things that they're doing, we can develop a lot of empathy for them. And Wanda is such an empathetic character. I actually think she's the best villain we've seen in the MCU since Loki in the Avengers in 2012. So best villain in the MCU in 10 years, incredibly compelling, couldn't take my eyes away from her. So dark and so twisted within, but we also can understand and empathize exactly where she's coming from. The reason I say she's on par with Loki is because of that, because of the empathy piece, and you're sort of behind them. You sort of want them to win in a way because you understand. That's the reason why I don't think Thanos was as good of a villain. We know he was a great villain, but he wasn't as good as Loki and Wanda, because I wasn't rooting for Thanos. I didn't want him to win. And so that's what makes her such an incredible, compelling villain. Here's what I want to say though. This doesn't translate to real life. If someone's doing something really terrible, we don't then go, oh, but they had a really bad childhood. Things were really difficult for them, so it's okay that they did them terrible things. No, obviously, it's one way in movies. It's very different in real life. So the empathy for the villain is beautiful, doesn't translate to the real world. So that's point number one. Point number two, let's talk about Wanda's relationship with her children, which the entire film was really centered around. So I want you to think about a couple things. I know that in the thumbnail I say mother or monster. I want us to look at that. I want us to look at what is the archetypal mother. When you hear mother, what should that be? Should it be someone who's really nurturing and warm? Someone who's really loving, someone who's really safe, someone who feels empathetic and compassionate and giving? That's the archetypal mother. Is the Scarlet Witch those things? Wanda Maximoff might be, but the Scarlet Witch persona, no, she's not about the nurturing. She's about destruction. She's about vengeance. We'll come to vengeance towards the end. That's not the archetypal mother, right? And of course, she has this huge realization towards the end when she finds that her children, Billy and Tommy, are terrified of her. And that's when she has this epiphany. Isn't it interesting too that the only person she can really submit to and cry with is her alternate self? Where she kneels down and she's crying, and we actually saw that in the trailer. She can only submit to that version of herself. Really beautiful. So does she love her children? You know, it reminds me of those things we see in the real world where someone's fighting for custody of their children regardless of what's best for them. Love doesn't hurt people. Love doesn't scare people. Love doesn't push people away. Love doesn't take things away from someone. That's not love. That's something very different. What it seems like to me with Wanda is it's it's an obsession with the past, and it's an obsession with the future as well, in what could have been. I saw this with one of my clients. It was a few years ago now. It's probably about 4 years ago. I was working with this lady. The people I work with today are really not like this, but she was saying to me, she loved this man, and she was saying, Cheryl, but you don't understand. Like, I have to make him see. I have to make him see, because I love him so much. I love him, and I have to make him see that I'm the right person for him. This man had a wife. This man had a wife, right? Is that love? Is that love? Or is that obsession? When I finished working with her, I spoke to her a couple of months later, and albeit, yes, she'd been through therapy as well because she needed to really heal this. I came back and I said, what's different? And she said, nothing's changed, but everything's changed. Nothing's changed in that I'm still not with him, but everything's changed because I don't care that I'm not with him. I'm at peace with that. I never had him to begin with. I don't have him now, but the difference is I have my peace of mind. Going back to the MCU as an example, where do we see this love displayed in a much healthier way? We see it in the Loki series. We see it in episode 6 of the Loki series, spoiler incoming, where he says, I don't want a throne, I just want you to be okay. That's love. Loki and Sylvie, for all their issues, and believe me, there's stuff there, that's love. I don't want anything from you. I don't want to take anything from you. I don't want you to be in harm's way. I want you to be all right. I want you to be all right. I want you to be safe and happy and well, because I care about you. That's love. So what Wanda's doing with her children there is not loving, and it's certainly not loving to the mother in their reality, right? She realizes that in the end, of course. So, point number 3. Stephen's attachment style. Did you spot it? Can you tell what his attachment style is? Is he someone that is seeking connection, which could mean he's either anxious or he's securely attached? Or is he someone that pushes connection away? Avoidant. He's avoidant, and here's why. He does push connection away. You know, I'm so busy with work, even if work is, you know, fighting Thanos and saving the cosmos. He's too busy for love, right? And then he realizes that he's fucked up. He's made a mistake. He says something really illuminating towards the end. He says, I do want you. I get scared. That's such an avoidant thing. It mirrors the Loki series, where he used to be very avoidant, right? And he was really scared, pushing people away, and now he's seeking connection. So it can be healed, and we see Stephen start to go through that process towards the end. I've loved you in every reality. I've loved you in every universe. Oh, that's a line, right? We're going to move on to Stephen and Christine specifically in a second. With his attachment style, we know he's avoidant. Something that happens with avoidant people, and just have a think if you do something like this too, is creating this fantasy relationship. He's got this fantasy in his mind of what it could be like with her, and he stays in the fantasy rather than creating it. So just check in if that's something that you do. I've done it a lot myself, so it's okay. It's just an awareness. It's very easy to look at what someone else is doing. It's a lot harder to look at it and go, oh, I do that, and I want to change that. Point 4, Stephen and Christine. What is this relationship like? It's the whole thing of the one that got away. When we apply this to our own life, it can be quite dangerous for us, because we do the same thing that Wanda's doing, which is either living in the past of how it was or living in the future of how it could have been, instead of accepting the reality now, which is I'm not with this person that I love. I could have been with this person that I loved. Now she's married another man because of the choices that I made. This woman loved me, and we're not together because of the choices that I made, right? But there is this romanticizing of it, of I loved you in every universe, and, you know, you were the one and I fucked it up. But what's really beautiful at the end is they repair that, and they decide they don't want to be together. That's okay too. Point number 5, Stephen and America. Did you notice a correlation between Stephen's relationship with America and his protection of her, and Stephen and Peter Parker? He sees America as a bit of a daughter figure, just like he sees Peter as a bit of a son. He protects her, is very protective. I actually think if he had have gone down that road with Christine of having children, raising children, I actually think he would have been a great father, potentially. We see he's very, very protective of young people, and he does the right thing. Which brings me on to point number 6. which is Stephen and his other selves, his relationship with his alternate selves. We've talked about this before. I think we talked about it when we were analysing No Way Home. We talked about it then. We talked about how would it be, how would you feel if you got to meet your alternate selves in alternate universes? What would that be like? Stephen gets to do that, and he says, other me, other me, other me. So he gets to meet these different versions of himself, which is very illuminating for him, particularly at the end with the older third eye, right? So he gets to meet different versions of himself. We can kind of do this. We can do this. We can connect to our higher self. We can connect to our future self. We can connect to past versions of us, right? We grow and evolve even when we don't do anything. We know this about people in our lives, right? We see people that don't really actively do anything to grow, but they still learn over time. But we can grow faster. We can grow faster by imagining what our future self knows that we don't know and applying that now, and we save ourselves time. So instead of learning that lesson in 5-10 years, we can learn it now. And that's why it can be helpful to work with coaches and people like that, people like me, because we bring those lessons closer. The thing that you would learn in 10 years, someone knows now, and you can learn that now. So that's connecting to your future self and becoming that future self sooner. I thought it was really interesting how they sort of touched on that and played with that in Multiverse of Madness. What else do I want to say about his relationship with his other selves? It's this idea that he's actually kind of similar in all different realities. Christine says that you're the same Stephen. It turns out in the end he's not. He makes a different choice, right? Especially with America at the end. Makes a very different choice. Instead of taking her power from her, he gets her to step into her own power. Beautiful, symbolic, incredible. I also am noticing what Marvel's doing here in seeding us with the next generation of Avengers, effectively. I'm pretty old school. I remember the Avengers in 2012, and we all love all of the Avengers, and now we're getting a new generation of this because most of them are dead. Most of them are dead now. And Stephen touches on that when he goes to see Wanda in her apple tree orchard. He sees her and he says, we need an Avenger. And she says, what about the other ones? And he basically says, all the good ones are dead. All the good ones are dead. Marvel knows that too. And so Marvel are using the characters that we know and love, that we've known and loved for about 10 years. And he's using, Doctor Strange hasn't been around for as long, but they're using the characters that we know and love to piggyback onto this new generation of people that probably a younger generation are going to really connect to, just like we did with the Avengers in 2012. Black Widow's gone. Hawkeye, we know, is in another series. Black Widow's introduced Yelena. Hawkeye, I didn't watch the series, but I know that he introduced a character as well. Iron Man's gone. Captain America, he's birthed a new generation as well. There's lots of different iterations of him. Thor's still around. Thor's still kicking. Yes, they're seeding in this new generation. They're doing that with America as well. Point 7, light versus dark. Very symbolic. Very symbolic. When Wanda goes to the fortress, which starts with K, the name's completely gone from my mind. She goes to attack them. Did you notice the energy field they put around? And she's attacking them with this dark energy. And there's this symbolism of light versus dark, good versus bad, good versus evil, and all of that. Very, very heavy on symbolism throughout of, the stronghold and the book of light and all these things that are fighting against each other. Is that something you believe that happens in our world to a lesser or greater extent, that we have these different energies? I think so. It doesn't look quite the same as it does in the Multiverse of Madness, but there are dark and light energies at play, I believe. Likewise, point number 8, the multiverse and alternate realities. This idea that we can step into a different reality and there's something completely different that's happening. This idea that there's other versions of us doing different things. There's other realities where things are better. Yeah, what does that mean to you? What does that represent to you? For me, it's looking at this quantum realm, the realm of infinite possibilities, There's a version of you that's happy. There's a version of you that's in love. There's a version of you who has overcome the things you're struggling with now. And it's not that we need to escape to a different reality. I'm going to come to that point next. But it's not that we need to escape to a different reality to experience that. We just need to bring that reality into our life now, right? So if there is an option out there, a possible outcome where you're happy, you're in love, you're living the life you want to live, then how do you do that now? How do you bring those lessons, that wisdom into your life now? What do you need to do, to say, to think, to feel? Who do you need to be? What actions do you need to take? What plan do you need to put into place? Right? It's a possibility. It's a possibility for you. Point number 9, and it's connected to this idea of alternate realities. Shifting. They are effectively shifting to different realities, right? We know that shifting is a thing. Thank you, Gen Z. And I thought that dream walking was symbolic of that, right? This idea that you can go into a different reality. However, and we see this and it's very explicit, is that dream walking is considered bad in this film. It's considered to be a bad thing. It's considered to be not of the light. There are some very strict codes around this, and Doctor Strange should not be doing it. He knows that. And he certainly should not be taking the body of his dead alternate self. And that's when the souls of the damned come for him, right? Those darker energies. So we mentioned this when we analysed Moon Knight, right? When we analysed Moon Knight, we talked about if there's an energy that's going to take control of your body, is generally not a benevolent force, generally speaking. So just know that. Just be aware of that. There's a lot of really dark symbolism in here, witchcrafty stuff. So just be aware that if you're going to play with those energies, it can be very dangerous. What we saw in the movie is obviously dramatized, but just be really careful because energy is real. And when it comes to shifting, I've talked about shifting before. Shifting, I think, is a very benign thing. And we can have this enriching experience if we want. If we want to shift to a different reality, we can do that through a guided meditation. And I think there's some great ones out there. But the question is, why are you shifting? Are you shifting to have this enriching experience and learn these really rich principles about the quantum field and quantum leaping, manifestation and energy, which is a very spiritual thing? Or are you shifting because you want to escape? Wanda is shifting because she wants to escape. She cannot accept that she's in this reality without these children. She has to go and get them. She will do anything to get to that reality, to be with those children, even if it means stealing their own mother's body, right? She is not willing to accept her current reality. This whole thing with Wanda is escapism. She is not willing to process this grief until the end of the film, which she will. Now she's going to process the grief, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to her next. But she's going to hell and back, quite literally, to avoid the process of sitting with her grief. It's too painful. We see that scene where she's with the boys and it's beautiful. And she's tucking them into bed, and these kids are so freaking cute and so sweet and so lovely. And she's tucking them into bed and she's hugging them and she's getting ice cream for them. And then she wakes up and there's this contrast where it zooms out and she's alone. And she cannot accept that. So what I want you to ask yourself is this. Where are you doing some version of that? Where are you doing some version of trying to escape because the present situation seems really, really painful? It's probably not going to look like what it does with Wanda, right? Probably isn't. But we can escape. And I talked about that when I did the video on Wanda. It's really important that we feel our feelings. I lost years to escapism, absolutely years and years and years and years. And I don't want that for you. I'm going to talk about dressing as these characters in a second. And I'm also going to rank that relationship at the end. We had a feature called Rank That Relationship, if you haven't done for a little while. So we're going to rank that relationship in a moment. But I also want to talk about dressing as these characters because, these characters do represent quite dark entities. A lot of them do. So what I would say is just be careful. Just be really careful. If you're dressing as a character that's been described as being of a pretty dark energy, then you might just want to, you know, carry a little crystal with you. This is selenite. You might want to carry something like that. If you start to feel like you're losing a lot of time dressing as one of these characters that represents like a very kind of dark energy, if you find you're losing a lot of time for it, time to it, if you feel like it's getting really obsessive, if you start to feel really tired and start to feel like you're kind of losing your spark and your energy and your radiance, then it's not a good sign. So just be really careful. I know these characters are so amazing on the screen and we want to kind of embody them because they look really cool and their outfits are exceptional, and we want to play with that. And be careful with the energy side of it, because just be careful is all I'm saying. Especially when we're talking about things like runes and witchcraft, just be careful what you're playing with. Do you understand all of those areas? Be careful is all I'm saying. Right, rank that relationship. We're going to rank that relationship. I have 6. We have a list of 6 relationships that we've already covered in the MCU and in DC Comics. I'm going to rank that relationship. I'm going to go from 6 to 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I have ranked these relationships in order of how much of a positive impact this relationship has on their lives. So it's not necessarily how great is the relationship, how epic is the romance, it's how good is this relationship for them and their growth and evolution, or does it have a really negative impact on one of them or both of them. So at number 6 in Rank That Relationship, we have Wanda and Vision. This is some karmic shit. This is some karmic shit right there. Can it be karmic? Does Vision actually have a soul? He's sentient. It's hard to say because it's a synthezoid. Wanda and Vision is last on our current list because it causes him to die and her to go to very dark energy. So this is not good for either of them, despite how beautiful their relationship could have been. We're looking at the reality of the impact it had on them. Number 6 is Wanda and Vision. Number 5, Thor and Jane. I will explain why in the video above. Number 4, Selena and Bruce. They're very much trying to heal, but they're getting into Selena and Bruce from the Batman, Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz iteration of that character. They're trying to heal, but they are really playing into old patterns and old traumas equally. Number 3, Loki and Sylvie. I know this is controversial, but I'm focusing on how it is for their growth. I think because he's going from being very avoidant to being someone that seeks connection, it's very good for him. It really cracks him open. With Sylvie as well, she goes from pushing people away to actually trusting him to a point. And so she's going to, I think, go on a really interesting journey of healing and self-discovery in season 2, hopefully. So that's number 3, Loki and Sylvie. Point number, rank that relationship, 2, Stephen Strange and Christine. They come to a really beautiful conclusion in the end and they reach a lot of peace within each other. Now I'm thinking about it. Should that be at number 4? Okay, we're going to stop. We're going to change this. We're going to change this because I've decided that actually needs to happen. Okay, so at number 6, we've got Wanda and Vision. At number 5, we've got Thor and Jane. At number 4, we've got Selena and Bruce. At number 3, we've got Stephen Strange and Christine. 2 is Loki and Sylvie. And at number 1 is Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, who had such a beautiful healing relationship. They both became better for it. And that is why they're at the top of that ranking. Can you see the difference between Tony and Pepper and how their stories end, and Wanda and Vision and where they're both currently at? Now, it's not the end of Wanda and Vision's journey. Might be for Vision, unless we get some flashbacks of him. But certainly Wanda is still on this journey, and she's not in a good place. Not in a good place. But I will say that Elizabeth Olsen's portrayal of her is exceptional. Absolutely exquisite, immaculate. I was sobbing at the end. She did such a beautiful job. And yeah, I know it's not customary for Oscars to go to people in the MCU, but she did a tremendous job and I really think she needs to be commended for that. We loved it and we loved to see it. Okay, so we covered today. Point 1, empathy for the villain. It's great to have, but it doesn't translate in real life, as we know. 2, Wanda's relationship with her children. It's about vengeance. It's about vengeance. She is not thinking of the children's best interest. She is not thinking of the best interest of their actual mother as well in their other reality. And it's a way for her to escape. So she's not the archetypal mother. She's not nurturing. She's not being loving and supportive of them. She's very destructive and incredibly violent. That's not the vibe of the mother archetype. 3, we covered Stephen's attachment style, which is avoidant. He loses himself in this fantasy relationship of what if, and like the one that got away, and he avoids connection. And he also says to Christine, I do want you, I just get so scared, right? Also, in that moment, he's moving from avoidant to becoming secure, kind of like Loki does, right? He's starting to open up to her, and he's saying, I do want you, I find it really scary. Classic avoidant behavior. 4, we looked at Stephen and Christine's relationship. 5, we looked at Stephen in America and how he sees her as a daughter figure. 6, Stephen and his other selves, other me. He has this relationship with his former selves, even inhabiting the body of one of his former selves. It's the whole thing. Very disturbing, very gory, but also brilliantly done. 7, light versus dark, particularly when Wanda went to attack Strange and Benedict Wong's character. The Sorcerer Supreme. She went to attack them at the fortress, and there's this idea of light versus dark. You might want to start looking up something like light coding. Light coding is a type of language. It's a type of it's written, and it can also be a sound. Actually, that's a good point. So sound was also something that was shown here. I thought it was interesting that they were fighting with sound. Strange and his other self were fighting with sound, and sound is an energy and a vibration, and Stephen Strange fights with energy, right? It's not surprising that they would start fighting with sound. Brilliantly done. Never seen that in a film before. I loved how they did it. So the light versus dark is definitely a theme in this film. Number 8, so is the multiverse and the alternate realities, right? We have this idea of all these different realities stacking up on top of each other, colliding with each other. There are at least 800-900 different realities. Very interesting concept, and some of that is true, of course. 9, shifting and dream walking. And just knowing when we are trying to escape to a different reality, excuse me, generally we're doing that because we don't want to be where we are right now. And that can be very scary for us. We want to escape. So we also talked about point number 10, dressing as these characters. Excuse me. Dressing as these characters. Just be really careful if you're dressing as a character that's been described as being a demon. Just be careful that you are not invoking some dark energies, because it's not going to be good. And point number 11, of course, was we ranked that relationship, and we looked at some of the relationships in the MCU and in DC Comics. And we have a rank of 6 currently, based on how healing they've been for each other, not necessarily how epic the relationship has been. Okay. All right, here we are. Not my best one today, guys. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm not really on form today. I'm a little tired, and that's why it wasn't the best one we've ever done. But we're just going to continue on. If you did enjoy this, though, I have a ton of other videos on relationships in the MCU, looking at these characters, looking at how they interact with each other, looking at their journey of healing themselves, looking at how they are forming relationships with other people, whether it's with their parents, whether it's with their significant others, their romantic interests. Ton of videos on the channel. So if you enjoyed what you saw, please do like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps me out. We are growing a new channel here, so we're only a few months old, so please do support us in that way. I'd love for you to comment below and let me know, what was your biggest takeaway, either from this video or from the film? What was the thing you took away as a learning point for yourself, for your journey and for your growth? And also let me know what action step you're going to take as a result of this. As I've always said, we are watching these films anyway. We might as well use it as an opportunity to be our best self and to understand ourselves at a deeper level and have a better relationship with ourselves and each other. Thank you for being here. This has been Love and Fandom. I've been Cheryl Muir. I will see you next time. And remember, you are absolutely worthy of love.